Peace. Oh. Peace, 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 peace. What's up, y'all? How's everybody doing? Welcome. Oh, goddamn. Thank y'all for being here. For anybody who doesn't know who I am, my name is Dylan Green, CineMasai. This is Real Notes Live number 3. The first one done with a lot of production value. So I'm like, we came a long way from public access, but thank y'all for being here. For anybody who doesn't know, Real Notes is all about just talking to rappers mostly, but we all love rap and everybody loves movies, and I'm interested in the intersection between rap and film. Figure everybody likes movies. We come and talk about movies, not hear the same 14,000 questions get asked to people that people get bored of. People liked it enough for me to want to be here, so thank y'all. But enough about me. Enough about me. We got somebody really, 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 really special here tonight who was kind enough to come and share in this beautiful moment that she's been going through. Rapper and a model out of Brooklyn. She just put out the breakdown about 3-ish weeks ago. It's been going crazy. It's what's been playing out here all night. So if anybody's heard it, it's go find it. Go find the breakdown.
Yes,
but
go find that.
This is Miss Boogie. This is Rose.
Yo, what's up, y'all?
Clap it up for Rose.
I'm struggling between eye contact with y'all and Dylan, so we're just gonna go in our little bubble real quick.
Yo, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for wanting to do this. Like it means like I said, it means the world that you reached out and just like that. This is like I'm a fan of what you do, obviously, but like it's nice to share this moment with somebody else who's like we were just talking about this off camera. Just like we're both at like a level right now. So I'm just like thank you so much for being here with me tonight.
No, it's my pleasure. It feels like synergy,
Already.
I'm excited to be here. It's pretty full circle. Shout out to Brooklyn. It's really important for me to be like in this space, in this borough, in this time. So I'm very grateful for the space.
I'm not from Brooklyn, but I'm considering myself honorary Brooklyn tonight. Much love to y'all. But just to get things started, I'm gonna ask you the first question I ask everybody who comes on here, which is, what was the last? I already know the answer because we were talking about it. But what's the last movie or TV show you watched that you had a strong opinion about?
Okay, I think we watched it. Prison Songs. That's the last movie. I saw that last night, and a few nights ago with my best friend. Yeah, so guilty pleasure. So bad that it's so good.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I watched it. It's been years, like I told you, and just like we're gonna get into that in a second. But like, when was the first time you saw it? Because this is very much like this really did feel like some like you'd be clicking around the TV and find this at like 2 p.m. On like some random when did you first see this?
I seen like clips of it like a really long time ago, but I never knew where to find it because it wasn't like popular. So, and I never knew that it was from that movie. So I had seen like memes of like Mary and Mary J. Blige, like she's one of the artists in it, and I seen like just that floating around. And then my best friend connected the dot for me, and she was like, "Oh, it's this film." And we watched a little bit of it, and then I went home and like watched the rest of it because I had only seen it up to a certain point. So.
So that was your first time seeing it all the way through, beginning to end?
Yes.
And how'd you feel about it?
There was like a lot of, I think because it's like just like a opera, theater-based movie kind of thing, very like in the performance art element, it's hard to navigate the story sometimes because it just shifts so rapidly. We were talking about that.
Yeah.
But there's just so much beauty in like how raw it is and the artists that are in it. I feel like I can't find those specific artists like in today's version of like hip hop and R&B. So Mary J. Blige is in it, Fat Joe, Q-Tip. Yep. Those are a few of like the recognizable faces. But it's one of those movies that make you want to wonder where everybody is now.
Like as if we didn't all know like where Joe is. Like we all everybody knows where Fat Joe is at any given point. But like Tip, but Tip. you can hear him up
He
the
be
street, right?
outside.
Yeah, nah, like licking the bottoms of clean shoes and shit.
Right.
But you know, like it's always interesting because like Q-Tip doesn't do a lot of acting, so like whenever he's in anything, I always like, you know, he's one of my favorites, so I'm always like, I gotta see this, and like, I just like. He's a really, really good actor because I feel like most of the cast kind of, I don't want to say saved this because I didn't hate this movie, but like we were talking about before, it's just like I wasn't expecting it to be so stagey.
Right.
You know, and just like we were saying, it's just like there's like no establishing shots. Like everything is just like boom, we're in the halfway house. Then boom, we're in the jail. Then boom, we're like on the subway. It's just like so. I wasn't expecting it to be so zippy. I watched this at like midnight, so I'm so like I wasn't half asleep, but I was like gearing up to go to sleep. So I'm like I wasn't expecting to like have to follow like as much as I had to follow, and just like it's just heavy.
It is.
It's a
It is.
heavy movie.
It's a lot of layers, and
Yeah.
I feel like often you're in the movie and you're just like, wait, when did this happen? Like, when did this person get locked up, or when did this person die, or where is this person? Like, a lot of the characters just don't make their way back into the film. But again, I'm just really attracted to like how raw it is, and how I wish I could see a version of that today.
Yeah, me too. Like the thing, like I mean, like there's a bunch of scenes that really just caught me, but the one that I can't stop thinking about is like at the very end when they're about to make the prison break, and Tip makes it into the box with like the gates, and it's just like in that moment I see him holding the knife to the cop's throat, and I'm just like, he spent his whole life. He
got 15 to life, by the way.
What happened?
He got 15 to life in the movie.
Right. Yes. So he gets 15 to life for accidentally pushing Fat Joe onto the tracks, and he gets electrocuted and dies.
That's crazy in real life,
son. But see, like so like at the beginning of the movie, there's a bit where, you know, like he's in the classroom. It's in like it's in like the stereotypical like bad kid classroom, and the teacher looks at him. He's like, "You're not like those kids. You're different."
Very freedom writers.
So freedom writers, bro. And excuse me. And just like from the beginning, you could tell that he's like trying to like fight against this perception, and then and then it's just like he's in the box, and then he just gets shot in the chest and he dies. And I'm just like,
literally what happened?
What? Like, you know, because like he like did all the art, and then of course it ends with all his art being shown in a museum.
I'm sorry, that was a little beautiful. That part right there, like. So basically they like immortalized him through his art that he was making while he was in prison, and there was like a whole gallery, there was a whole exhibit after he, I guess, died in prison. I mean, it makes me wonder a lot about how like art travels, and like if he knew it would be in that space with those people, or if like those are the people he made it for. Right. And the fact that like his art was, it makes me wonder about like topics around like consent and like your mission and where things land. But nonetheless, it was really beautiful to see like all those pieces. And I wondered, I'm like, who really made these? Even though it's in the movie, like who really made it? Because these are really amazing pieces.
There's no writing done on this movie. Like after I finished it, I went and looked like who was the artist who made all the shit, and just like. It's like there's no way that 40% of those people who are in that gallery would have anything to do with any just staring at this person like, oh, who's this prisoner in this? You just like I don't know, like it was great, but I also thought like most of these people are about to just like go to like Starbucks and go get a sandwich after this is over. Like this person, like we're talking about like people like working on like asbestos riddled buildings, and it's like, oh yeah, no, where you finna eat after? Like.
Right. It's kind of crazy. And also just, I think about, like, I don't even think, like, the artists that were in that movie even think this movie is available online right now. Like, because it's probably so far back into their memory.
Yeah, like we were saying before, like, this is Mary J's first movie ever, which I didn't realize, because, like, she's acted a bunch, of course, but, like, this is her first movie ever, and it makes sense, because she's only in it for 10 minutes. You know, like, and you know, like the last time we see her, she's like hooked up to an IV and just like off drugs on like in front of her son. I'm just,
that is literally.
It's a whole tragedy, man.
But it's real. It's real. It's reflective. It's still happening. Yeah. And I think that because it's like a film that is so dated, we assimilate like the fact that time, because so much time has gone by,
Yeah.
progress has been made. But I don't think so. I think a lot of those themes are still very much reoccurring, and I wish that there was more of like a story outside of him going to prison. I was talking about that with my friend last night, but the movie is called Prison Songs.
Yeah.
So, and I think that the very few musical elements that were in it, which of course, like I was also expecting more because
Right.
they got like rappers, R&B singers to be in it. Those few moments were still really cool to see.
Yeah.
To see kind of like artists that are traditionally like recording artists be able to express music through film, but that's not so that it doesn't have to be singing in order to make an impact. And seeing Fat Joe rap on the train, there was like a scene where
Yeah.
he bumped into Q-Tip, and Q-Tip was a photographer in the movie, and like just like young amateur photographer applying for like art school, and he would just capture like emotions, right? Like he'll be in the middle of arguments with people, and like he'll take a picture of them, or he'll be witnessing an argument and take a picture of the two people. And he had taken a picture of Fat Joe arguing with his father in the movie, and Fat Joe saw him take the picture, but it wasn't until later when they were on the train that Q-Tip was walking around with his portfolio, because I think he was going to like, I don't know, some sort of audition. And he got into a fight with Fat Joe on the train, and then his portfolio fell out on the ground, and the pictures that he took of Fat Joe arguing with his father were like on the floor with like the
Yeah.
portfolio.
And
So
Joe
it was
Crack
this-
went crazy when that happened, by the way.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, yeah, there was no IG, so it's like, and these days, like you would have saw it on IG, but seeing them in real life is
Yeah.
crazy. Like,
Yeah, no, it's just like a picture of like you and like your dad like in the middle of an argument, just like staring at the camera, like it's like
staring at the
intimate shit.
camera, yes, so intimate, and then that was like that's why they ended up getting into a fight, and yeah, Q-Tip pushed Fat Joe on the tracks, and Fat Joe got electrocuted and died.
Yeah.
But
in Tip's not in Tip's defense, Joe's song was really bad.
that's what I
It
was
was a
getting
bad
at.
song.
I feel like, yes, it was bad, but I was still getting a kick out of seeing, like,
Yeah.
when did Fat Joe think he was going to be, like, in a musical? Like, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
often, like...
When are we ever gonna see Fat Joe in a musical ever again?
Exactly. And it makes you wonder about, like, those limitations that are set on just, like, rap and hip-hop, and how much it gets put into clusters. It also made me think a little bit about like Queen Latifah, right? Like Queen Latifah full on transition from like rapper, MC, pioneer on top of everything.
Jersey's finest.
Into like full on Broadway and just musicals and all that stuff. So I want that time to come back again.
You and me both.
Like I want to see like I want to see Lola Brooke in a hip hop musical, like.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Lola Brooke and Connie Diamond.
Lola Brooke and Connie Diamond,
together.
or like, yeah, I want to see everybody. Fabio, like, I want to see, like, all my favorite New York rappers in a musical.
I wanna see a Shawnee Bin Laden off Broadway play. Like, I wanna follow me here for a second. I want a Shawnee Bin Laden one-man play in like a black box.
Okay.
Like, that's all I want. Like, give me that, and I'm straight.
Y'all
But
heard
like,
him.
The sad part is, you're gonna hate me for this. If they were to cast this movie today, Blueface and Christian are gonna be in the movie.
Oh my God, Blueface and Christian are going to be in the movie.
It's gonna
definitely.
happen.
It's what it's about. It's what the movie is about.
Yeah. And I messed her name up. I'm sorry, I always mess her name up.
No,
But-
that's cool. She be messing her name up too. Krishan.
Nah, that's real. That's real. So let's run it all the way back with you in that case. What's the first movie experience you can remember having? It could be at the theater, it could be at your cousin's house. First thing that comes to mind for you.
So I had this cousin. They lived in the suburbs. Well, she's still alive. I have this cousin, and she had just like the whole Disney like archive, like things before her time, things during her childhood, like all of that. So it was definitely going to her house, being able to pick and choose what we wanted to watch next, and continue to watch things over and over, and fall asleep, wake up, Lion King is still playing, like, so
Type
it was
shit.
definitely through her archive, my earliest childhood memories with film. So all the quintessential, like, Disney movies were, like, the first things. But my first, like, Broadway experience was Peter Pan. Mom Dukes took me to that. I don't know what she had to do to get them tickets, but shout out to Mom. I know she made it happen, and Peter Pan was amazing. So that was like my first like theater experience. Then went on to I think Beauty and the Beast and all those like real surface level Disney films. And then like my first independent like time that I got to go
Yeah.
see a play was Rent. So I got to
Wow.
see Rent.
What year was that?
I don't remember, but it was in high school. Chicago. And yeah, those were like the first times that I actually went out to see something. And I think now they ended up being so on the nose, but I think back then is genuinely what like gravitated towards me and I gravitated towards. And they ended up becoming cult classics eventually. So, but those were like the first experiences I had seeing people really perform in general.
Right. Yeah, I remember. I remember when I first heard about Rent. I think I saw the movie when it came out. I must have been either like, I think it was middle school, and I was like obsessed with it for like at least 2-3 years. Like just like the songs, the characters, just like everything about Angel. Like Angel was my favorite character, still is my favorite character in the whole movie. And just like, I was on a bus once. We were on like a field trip, and I started singing one song, "Glory," in the back of the bus for some reason. And people were just like, "The fuck are you doing?" But like apparently I was going in because everybody started clapping at the end. I don't know. I was just feeling it. You ever just be feeling a song? Like it just happened. Like I was like very into Rent for some reason. So
I think it's really well done. Like it's a cliche New York movie that touches on all the stereotypes and all this stuff. But I think the film rendition is just so well done. And that was my first time really seeing New York being filmed in at that capacity. Right? Like, of course, there were, like, shows or movies that have, like I guess, like a Home Alone, like, just scenes of New York, but they probably filmed a lot of it, like, in L.A. and, you know what I mean?
Or Atlanta or some shit, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
But, that was the first time I really saw New York look like what New York looks like when I'm walking in New York. So like seeing Second Avenue look so like gloomy and gritty and just St. Mark's and Thompson Square Park, like seeing that in real life and then seeing it on Rent, I was just like, it was reflective as fuck.
Man, yeah, nah, like I hadn't even thought about that because like I'm from Jersey and I didn't really start coming into the city by myself for real until like I was a little older, like kind of like on my way out of high school versus / like going to college.
Good job. You guys did a good job. Nothing in these streets.
Too true. But either way, like it was, like just like I remember like there's so many, like I have so many different like versions of New York in my like I just embedded in my head through music and movies. Like I could sit here and talk about like. Like when I think about New York, I think about like MF Doom. I think about Dipset. I think about like like peak era 50 Cent, G Unit. Just like I think about Cakes, the Killer. Like there's like so many.
Actually from Jersey.
Oh right,
That's
Cakes
so
is from Jersey.
cool, right?
My fault.
No. I'm just saying because you're from Jersey too.
Right. Yeah. And no, it's crazy because I knew that too. I'm just mad at myself. Shout out to Cakes. Shout out to Cakes. But either way, like I think Rent really did kind of paint a very, like when people think of like bohemian New York, like it was like hipster before hipster was a thing, kind of, like.
And that's like the lens I still see New York through. Like I don't care how modern times get or how bright the lights get, I still see New York in that hazy, murky kind of just like,
Right.
The A train is crazy.
The A train will always be crazy.
Still is crazy.
It's like snow falling outside, like a pizzeria while people are singing about philosophy and sex and shit. Just good stuff.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
No, it's good shit. So like as you started to get. So I mean, like I'm interested because like now you're talking more a little bit about theater. So like as you started to get older and have like more life experiences and start to like be outside by yourself, like you remember the first time when you saw either like a movie, a play, a musical, some whatever that like really kind of like gripped you on some like in like a artistic, emotional, spiritual way, like like a capital M movie or like a capital P play or a capital T theater, however you want to put it?
Um, it's hard. I feel like growing up, I moved around so much that it was hard to really encapsulate like media into my trajectory, right? It's like
Right.
I would hear bits and pieces of things in different places, and like now I'm in a place where like I create my own collage of that in a way. So it's hard to really like pinpoint, like that one movie, but I feel like I love movies that really just like reflect just again like real time, real life, and
Yeah.
kind of have like this like biographical element to them, but doesn't necessarily have to be like a biography. Um, so I was talking today about City of God.
Oh,
I
classic.
wasn't too young when I saw it, but I was like young enough to not be watching it.
I was too young when
Um,
I saw City of God.
yeah,
For sure.
so that one definitely, I feel like that movie showed me, it just showed me like the relationship and like the romanticism between like danger and and love, right? Like love can be dangerous, and in this movie, I feel like people are finding that through very like corrupt situations and settings. Um, so I don't know if it shaped me, but it definitely stood out to me as like a film that just I can still see like the visual playing back, right? Because like the style that it's
Hmm.
like kind of like shot in and things of that nature. So I feel like that's one that stands out to me. Also, I knew this was gonna happen, but hold on, I got my list.
Nah, you got it.
um, wait, so have you seen Holy Motors?
Yeah. Oh, Holy Motors.
Yeah, Holy
I've seen
Motors.
Holy
Okay,
Motors.
yeah. So
I
Holy
was
Motors.
also too young to see Holy Motors when I
Exactly.
saw
I
it. But
was too
yeah.
young to see Holy Motors, and it just clicked with me last night that I like engaged with this movie at some point because since it has like that like sci-fi element to it, like
Yeah.
it kind of just becomes like almost like a figment in a way of like of your imagination.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, Holy Motors is also really good, so y'all should watch that. And that movie definitely ignited my like imagination in ways that I always knew that I had to rely on the unimaginable to like access like myself in the future. So
Right.
I was just like, how am I gonna do this? And Holy Motors to me, I was like, okay, well maybe I can do what he's doing in this movie to like turn into the person I want to be, right? Because he's in the movie, he's constantly like reincarnating like different experiences and bodies to
Yeah.
become closer to like his goal.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm trying to remember the first time I saw it. It was like it was probably in high school, but like I haven't seen it since. But I remember like there's just like images of Holy Motors like just stuck in my brain.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
it's
like
the yeah, no, even like the technology that I feel like they use to like translate that sci-fi element to it was just beautiful. Pink Flamingo also. You seen Pink
of
Flamingo?
course I seen
Oh
Pink
my
Flamingo.
God, people.
I own the movie. I got the DVD at home.
See, I was having this conversation with like my friend last night. I was just like, I be feeling like sometimes it's like certain films that like I've seen that I feel like nobody else should be seeing or has seen, and I'd be judged for watching them. But
Oh.
thanks, I appreciate that. Pink Flamingo is fucking amazing.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I've been judged plenty for having watched Pink Flamingos. Like, who else here has seen Divine eat shit in a pet store window?
Ooh, I
All the real
like
ones.
that.
Yeah, cool.
See me outside. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, no, that movie's amazing. Like, I love like, yeah, no, like I'm a big Divine fan, big John Waters fan. You know, like all that, I'm all that like Indecent Living, of Hairspray, of course. You know, like,
Yes.
he's just. John Waters is he's still alive too, and he's like out and about, and like I saw some video recently. I think it might have been on TikTok where he was talking about like, oh yeah, I have like my 20 and 30-year-old friends go to clubs for me and come back with all the music, and I just give them poppers, and I'm just like, thanks, John, appreciate you.
Still
bro."
happening. Still happening.
he's something else. But yeah, Pink Flamingos is a movie that I like. It feels like the type of thing that like you think you're the only person on planet Earth who's seen this movie, but like I've heard stories. I mean, like I think my mom was telling me one time, she went to go see Pink Flamingos at the theater one time, right,
Wow,
Mom?
that is so cool. See, I love that. I love that so much because it makes me so confident about just, growing up and being able to reflect on like, yeah, I've seen some weird things in life, but it doesn't make me who I am right now.
Hey, nah, honestly, to me, that's a classic. And before I
Yeah.
forget, I wanted to touch back on City of God because like I was talking with a homie on a different episode of this pod about the movie Snow on the Bluff. You ever see Snow on the Bluff before?
No, I never seen someone to bluff.
So find Snow on the Bluff because it's
Okay.
very much in the vein of something like City of God. It's just like those movies are both just so raw, and it's like they're movies that kind of blend, like they kind of blur the line between reality and fiction in a lot of ways. Like if you Google Snow on the Bluff, the first question you get is Snow on the Bluff a documentary, or is it like it's like that type of movie where it's like I haven't seen it in a minute, but it's like that it just kind of stuck to my ribs in a way that like transcends just like what it's about, like what happens in it. It's just one of those things that you just like live with, and like City of God is a thing that I've like lived with.
Yeah.
Like I feel like for like people of a certain age, it's like one of the first like artsy movies that you ever like see and fully like. It's one of those. It just appeals to everybody. I don't know. Like I don't know a person who's seen the movie who's like it was all right. Like it's one of those where like you have it does get that feeling out of you.
And it like transcends even like location, right? Like I think because it's like shot in Brazil, I think there's like this like, Brazil is so exotic. It's like exoticism. Like you're like, from that voyeuristic point of view, you're like, well, what's going on there? But not only do they do a good job at letting you know what's like going on in the culture of Brazil during that time period. I think it like it's like 60s to 80s almost.
Something like that.
Yeah. So it just still transcends like its location in that way because shit like that was happening in so many different places during that time. And so yeah, and I think I used to go back to it a lot once I started to dive into like my Colombian background, like, and just like having family that just lived lives very similar to like the ones that were being shown in that movie. That was a good place to like look back to for me and be like, okay, so like to imagine what they were actually like doing or figuring out why they were moving so like inconspicuous, and the actual trauma that they were causing in real life outside of like my innocence. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Shooters and the ooters.
Just like there really is something to be said about the way like movies in particular can just like give you a sense of place, like not even just within like where you're at right now, but just like within like family history, genealogy, just like like you'll see, like I personally connect a lot of my, or not like a lot of my film experiences, but just like there's certain movies where it's just like you realize like, oh, like I come from that, and it's just like, it just stuff that makes you just like sit and think about like where do I fit in. I can't think of anything like that right now because I'm putting myself on the spot like a dumbass, but like it's just like it's stuff like that just matters, and like it matters because of that, like you see. Like not even just in like the vain ego sense of like I see myself, but just like I see myself and I'm like I see myself and I'm living, like I'm a part of that lineage. Like it lives through me, like just like about the self in the most selfless way. I don't know. It's
or
tough,
just like saying like it could be me,
Right. Yeah. That too.
And that's a really big challenge for brown people, for queer people, like to be able to see movies and be like, oh, that could be me. It doesn't happen very often. So that's why sometimes like I have like this kind of relationship with like media where it's just like I do want to celebrate, I do want to push forward what I've seen, I do want to engage, but it's like technically I'm not in any of that. I have to dig through the crates really deep to find a movie where I see myself in fully, right? Not from like a voyeuristic or like ostracizing like point of view, or like a case study kind of situation.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Nah. Like like the worst thing is to like watch something like that and just have it feel like you're being analyzed,
or like it's still happening, or like sometimes seeing yourself in a film could also be like really daunting.
Yeah.
Depending on what the film is. you're just like, damn, like I'm really going through that right now. And the way that movie ended is not how it feels in this moment. So, or just like the way it ends makes you even just like wonder about what life could be like for you or what's next, you know? So,
Right. Yeah, it's not always good when art imitates life.
mm-hmm.
Let's put it that way.
Yes.
But for you, let's jump over to music. Like, when did you really first start falling in love with music as something that wasn't just like a passive thing in the background? Like, when did music become capital M music for you?
I feel like growing up, you know, in a Hispanic household with just my mother, basically, music music was always played really loud, but I only again got to hear it like through her lens, right? So up until a certain point in my life, I moved back to the Dominican Republic,
Right.
and I was only left with what was going on. I can only remember really like what my mother was playing when she was cleaning the house and what I was hearing in my little rural town in the Dominican Republic, right? And the only thing that was really progressive for me in that moment was like reggaeton, right? So like I was only able, that was the only thing that was off grid and accessible for at the age that I was living in that place. Like outside of that, everything was old, like just Hispanic music, music that's like in Spanish, boleros, bachata, vallenato, like those genres. And so there weren't too many places that like the youth could go to and be like, all right, what's new on the streets? By the time it got to us, it was already like played out in other places and other like, you know, other cities. We lived in a really small town in DR, and um, when I came, I remember the song I heard that made me want to tell my mother I wanted to come back to America was Work It by Missy.
Hey.
So when I saw that on like VH1, I was like, oh shit, that's what's happening back at home. Like, mind you, I'm already living that like that parallel life of like being Dominican but being American, then being Dominican, and
Right.
it was
Yeah.
happening in chapters. And I feel like Caribbean parents or just like parents who have roots in other places, like that is usually one of their go-tos when, you know, parenthood is becoming a little bit more challenging than they expected to. They're like, oh, good, you know, I have an idea. Let me send you back to where you came from
Yeah.
to learn a
Right.
lesson.
And how old were you when that happened?
I'm a vampire, so I don't believe in age. But I was in DR between like fourth and eighth grade.
Okay.
So however old you are in those years, I came
Gotcha.
back my freshman year of high school.
Got you.
So yeah, so I heard Work It by Missy, and I was like, is that what's going on in New York? Or is that what's going on in America in general? Like,
Right.
I need to go back home. So I called my mother immediately. I was like, so how we doing this? Because I'm missing out on way too much. Mind you, at that point, I feel like Work It was already like retrospective. Like she already had put that out and moved on. But by the time I got to DR, I felt like I needed to catch up.
Right.
So then I come back and at that point, when I come back, it's like now I'm tapping back into just what's going on here, like what's going on in Brooklyn, and the sounds of Atlanta are infiltrating into our coast and stuff like that. And so it's like all of like the, you know, the club anthems of like the 2000s and stuff like that are making their way in. But I remember one time I went to Green Acres Mall, and my grandfather was with me, and I was like, I want that Cisco album. Like, I want that album.
The one with the thong song on it?
Yeah, the one with thong song on it. That's Unleash the Dragon, right?
I think so,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I was like, I want that. You know, at this point, remember, like, I'm a kid and I'm just looking for. Right, I'm a kid buying the Thong Song album. Like my grandfather bought it for me, yes.
Come on.
So at this point, I'm a kid really just looking for a reflection. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not gonna say like Cisco was my reflection, but he was the only person at plain sight that was challenging aesthetic in black music.
Right.
You know, I mean, there were plenty of more people clearly before him, but it was out of my range of research. Like, I wasn't Googling too far back at the
Right.
time, right?
That's what you had in front of you.
Yeah, that's what I had in front of me.
Yeah.
So, um, he bought that album for me just without knowing, and of course, like, you know, everybody else in the family like got on his ass about it. They're just like, this is so inappropriate, like, whatever, and but y'all love this song, so why are you depriving me of good music, right? Because it's like my
Right.
older cousins were already listening to that, like, and it was just in the streets, period. Like, the
Right.
song was just in the streets. And then as I'm living here, the remix comes out with Foxy Brown on it,
Yeah.
and that's how you have the girl you have in front of you today. Don't get me wrong, I knew about like Foxy and Kim's legacy like ever so gently, but when I heard her flow on that song, you know, these are the times where remixes were actually being restructured to fit other artists into them,
Right,
and
yeah.
they were inviting you to the video shoot, and you know, like a remix was a whole new package for a song. Now it's just like, you know, remixing culture is just different. I'm just gonna say that.
But just throw a verse on it.
Yeah, you just throw a verse on it, and
which is fine, but like,
and just like make it work, you know. But
Yeah.
back then it was like you restructured the beat, like you made new space, you did a whole new campaign, like you really gave the song a whole nother life. So when Foxy got on that, it was just like game over for me. Like I was like, okay, that's when the reflection element kicks in. I was like, okay, woman, she has like this masculine edge to her, but it's only because society deems it as masculine. For me, I saw it very feminine because like my mother in many ways was like very much of that. Like she spoke Foxy's language, but it was just like the Dominican version, which is already like hot and like just Caribbean, and you know what I mean.
right.
So,
Yeah.
I was just again reflection. I was looking for women that reminded me of my mother. I was looking for like women that spoke to the woman that was living inside of me, that was still just like growing up, and Foxy did that for me, and she still does, you know. So that was like my first time where I was like, okay, one day I'm gonna figure out a way to connect like this performance with the language that I don't have yet to express the person that like I know I'm meant to be.
Yeah.
So then time goes on, and you know, I'm just like engaging with the music that's around me. I think it wasn't until I started to like make my own music that I was doing more active research on like music that came before my time.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and yeah, no, I was definitely about to ask, like, when do you, you know, like as you start doing more research and you start making your own music, and you know, like, when do you like, was there a moment where you realized that like this is gonna be more than just a hobby for you, where it wasn't just like I'm doing this for fun? It's like, this is me. Like, I'm a lifer. I'm here. Like, yeah.
So that's the thing, right? Like, for me, music has always been a fight to kind of just like see my reflection,
Right.
right? And I'm passionate about the creative elements, but I'm even so much more like passionate about the conversation and the narrative, because I know what it felt like to not, the fact that I could only find Cisco as like the only piece of, you know what I mean, like
Yeah,
music
you
that
know?
spoke to my person is annoying, because it's just
Yeah.
like, I love him, don't get me wrong, but I deserved,
Yeah.
I don't want to say more because Cisco is a lot, but you know, I just deserved, I deserved more to choose from.
Yeah, you deserve more options,
I
definitely.
deserved more
like,
options.
And you know, you had like Missy too, like, and like other people. And before I forget, I didn't want to forget to ask you, when did you realize that the end of the hook is just the reverse shit? How long did it take you to realize that? Because it's
I was today years old.
See? Really?
Because I really thought that there was like, is your feminine flame? Like
Me
those
too.
were words to me. Those were words to me. And Missy was
Honestly.
so global to me that it was just like, of course Nikki can like, I mean, Missy. Sorry. Subconscious. Missy was so global to me, but because of course Missy could speaking pig Latin. Like, I was like, to me,
Right.
it was like some otherly shit. I was like, yeah, Missy could do that. Like, she's
Right.
the only artist that can do that. But yeah, I found out it was reversed. Like, not, like, I wouldn't say not too long ago, but it was in my adult years, I must say.
Yeah, it was like I found out within the last year and a half. Like I've been listening to that song for almost 20 years, and
So many
was
myths are being unlocked in
you
this
know,
generation. I'm like,
but just like that, but like that's beautiful because like that, like I mean like Missy, Foxy, Cisco, Lil Kim, these are all icons, and like I feel like I don't know about all of them, but like like they're among like a crop of artists who people are like still, like that music's aging really well, and we're like learning new things about it and just like learning to appreciate it in different ways, and just like they were, I don't want to call them ahead of their time, but like they really did kind of embody a version of them, like all four of them in particular are just like they were them, and so many of us saw ourselves in them. Like I just wrote this piece for Vulture where I ranked all the Usher songs. Every
you ranked
song.
all the Usher songs?
I ranked all the Usher songs.
Wow, right before the Super Bowl. That's exciting.
All 155 of them. I've been working on it for 2 months. But I bring it up because Kim has a verse on Usher's "My Way," and that might as well just be a Lil Kim song. Like Usher doesn't matter on that song. Like
Yeah.
I was listening to it, and I'm like, oh, this is a Kim song.
Yeah.
Like she's talking about like smacking people with dildos and like why are you keeping my car? Why are you keeping my photo in your car? Like that's a Lil Kim song. Like she took the song from him.
That used to happen a lot too.
Yeah.
And it was okay. I feel like now it's like, oh, you got smoked on your own song. Like, no.
You
like,
want people to smoke you on your own song.
Yes,
like,
you're
that's
supposed
what you
to
want.
bring that. And that is like the only thing that I do understand that, hip hop and just music by us has always been competitive in like nature, but I think it's like the reason for the competition has changed so much.
Yeah.
Like now it's to prove who's better. Like back then it was to prove who was having more fun. Like and that's a great example.
Yeah, nah, it's just like people are having fun, like but like it's like fun's definitely not the emphasis it once was. I mean, like we live in rough times.
Yeah, like rap beef right now makes me sad.
Yeah.
Like I be genuinely upset.
Me too.
Like I don't like that.
Yeah, no, it's just like it's just like it goes from there's something going on right now that neither of us probably want to like mention on camera for obvious reasons, but like people just need to get some help. It's just like it's not even like, oh, this is like fun, I got my popcorn. It's like, nah, mama, you need to go get some help. Like, please, like, put the phone down. Like, please,
and I think also back in the days, people, when they felt like they were overwhelmed by what was going on, they would just step out of the limelight, right? And they would just work on themselves. But I feel like now in this era with everything being so, just like vigilant and the camera's always on.
Yeah.
People don't have the luxury to really like step outside of the light and like work on themselves anymore because it's equivalent to falling off or or like not winning.
Right.
But yeah, no, I think a lot of people, I mean, shit, I did that in my own career, right? Like I stepped away and got some help.
I was about to say,
shit,
like like you came out you came out and said that you were about to transition in paper, like after making music under the name J Boogie for years, and then just like almost immediately after that, you ghosted, and like like learning that part about your story, like I really appreciate that you like not even just from like the like go and develop yourself on some like once again like on some MF Doom shit, but just like it was nice that you didn't feel the need to just like immediately be like, here I am, and like give yourself some time to just like, like this is you, this is your true self. And you just take your time and figure out what it means to, you kind of like I'd imagine you're like figuring you out all over again to, like in a certain sense. So like, I just appreciated you not feeling the need to immediately just like be in front of the camera for that, like that's obviously like everyone's decision and no judgment on this side. It's just like, like that was clearly the right choice for you. And, just like considering like what was going through your brain? You know, like after like you know you make the announcement, like you're Miss Boogie. What's going through your brain as you're like, okay, like now I'm gonna start making this journey and like really become the person I've known myself I could be to be.
I think musically, for me, it was again like that dire need to be able to reflect through the art. You know, I think for the first portion of my like creative career, I made a lot of work that I'm proud about making, but I'm not too excited about like revisiting or listening to or
Right.
just like because it's again we're talking about like this like theme of reflection, and for me at that time it was very much like distorted. It was like that wavy mirror at the circus. You know what I mean?
I do, yeah.
And I say circus because as much uncertainty as I had within like my identity at the time, I was on top of the world that I was seeing at least. That was my rendition of being on top of the world. Like I was I was in every continent possible. I was performing in front of people that I never thought I would perform in front of. Um, I couldn't explain it. Like it was just a beautiful journey. It was a great time, but I wasn't really seeing. I wasn't seeing the reflection in the mirror,
Right.
and it was very cringeworthy, right? Like just imagine like being photographed and like documented, and
Right.
in your heart, not yet. Like y'all don't even know what's coming. Like wait till I'm done, or like let me finish what y'all are hearing or seeing, and let me put a bow on it before y'all get it.
Yeah.
Um, I felt for a long time like I was just like deprived of that agency, but I had to also appreciate that people were seeing something in me that maybe I wasn't seeing in myself, and it was like we were talking before, like they were seeing themselves in me.
Right.
So I went through a lot of guilt with like depriving people of being able to like continue to engage with that work prior to my physical transition. So like I deleted off of the work online. Sometimes I'm like heckling like old journalists, like, can you delete this article from 2016? And they're like, girl, I don't even work there anymore. Like I don't have admin. Like,
Right.
but it's just like again
Been
that
there.
conversation around reflection. Like I could say don't nobody want to see that, but unfortunately, for me, a lot of people do want to see that. Like the
Yeah.
literal fact that there's like an A and B to me, and that there's a timeline for people to reference is actually the work.
Right.
Because that's what I was looking for at least. Like I was looking for somebody that I can see in hip hop and rap that took control of their narrative in that way. Like I saw a lot of people have a really strong narrative and then it be too strong and then they have to like pull back or like
Yeah.
fall off or hide or
Yeah. And they just lose
the
control.
miseducation of it all,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
so it's not fair. And I mean I know that there's like a cheeky element to the fact that like okay yeah she like Lauryn Hill disappeared or whatever, but
She was
that
hiding in Jersey.
she was hiding in Jersey. Yeah, but it's like I empathize.
Yeah.
I empathize a lot with people celebrating a version of you that is like still in development or like that you're
Right.
like not necessarily gonna be that for a fact you don't really want to like look back on. But so it was difficult to really just like pull the rug out from underneath all of that and just be like, okay, so y'all have access to this no more. Like this is what y'all gonna get.
Right.
But people will find a way to remind you, like where you came from. So I'm very grateful for that part. Um, but it was a very intentional journey. I'll say that it was a very intentional journey. I chose to step into that because I could have just peeled off and just been on the sidelines just like watching the game unravel and then
Right.
live with that guilt of like then I would have been sitting there like I was the first one to do this and da, da, da. I don't have that no more because I'm in my true self and I
Right.
still feel like there's nobody doing what I'm doing. So
I mean, I mean, yeah, like it's just like, excuse me. I was thinking, like not to linger too long on your early career, but I was thinking about just the fact that like, you had put out a handful of projects, and then like you toured the whole world, you know, like you were so many different places and people knew you, you know, yeah, you know, like it really is like a B, two sides of the same coin type of situation. You know, like in a situation like that, it's just like it would have been so much whiplash to just like immediately go back into it again. Excuse
People
me,
would have
after
seen it
everything.
as like a rebranding, but had
Yeah.
nothing to do with my brand because my brand is still the same at its core.
Right. Yeah. 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 You know, like you know, like there's nothing that's really changed about you as an artist.
Mhm.
You know, and you know, you've talked a lot, and especially like recently about just like wanting to like live life before you know get to making music, and you know, like since the breakdown is like your debut album, like you're like, hey, you know, I mean, like you'd put out music before that, you put out like a handful of singles, but like this is like your first full body of work that's like, hey, I'm Ms. Boogie, like I'm gonna put this together. Um, so so like why was now the time for the Statement Piece album, and like how, like where were you when you decided you wanted to start putting it together, and how did it come together?
Um, I can't explain it. I think it's a testament to what a transition is really about, right? Like a
Yeah.
transition is about transitioning to a goal, to a place, to a feeling. And that's when I knew that like my journey was aligning with like my creativity. Um, and I think most importantly, like people who aren't of the spectrum of like queerness as a whole, or like who aren't trans, I think what they could take from that is the fact that like we all have one goal, and that's just to like, you know, be cool with ourselves and like
Yeah.
be happy enough to be face forwarding to the world. So um, that time, I don't. It wasn't really like a marker. It was just a feeling. I missed it. You know, I didn't know what tapping back in would look like. When I stepped away, I completely kind of just like remixed my whole lifestyle. Like I wasn't performing like that. Like I was doing the most mundane things that I didn't get to experience like in my early 20s because I was so busy kind of just like chasing a bag in a country that's like 20 hours away, or like, you know
Right.
what I mean, like
Right. Dealing with
being,
time differences and shit. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I don't know, like it just felt like, yes, I was grateful I'm grateful to be touring in Australia right now, but I always felt like there was still just like unfinished business, you know, back at home.
Right.
And when I took that time off, I was just like, all right, I'm here to feed myself, to finish my business, to be loved on, to align myself physically with like my destination and my goals, and give my family the time to adjust to that change, give my just like, yeah, my family most importantly, right? Like I have a nephew, and you know, there was that concern for me of like how what things looked like when he met me to what things are now.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until really that like I got his validation that I was Titi, that I was like his aunt no matter what,
Yeah.
that I felt comfortable enough to like then face the world again
Oh,
with
that's
this
so
like
special. That's so fire.
this new element to me. So and I mean also, you know, transitions happen in phases, and I think that that's something that I really want people to know, because for me, you know, like my identity has taken many turns and many times. Even when I was performing as J Boogie, like there was still a whole nother chapter to me that people in that spectrum, or I mean in that fields, or just like entertainment, and people who were following me weren't aware of,
Right.
right? Like I had already lived a whole nother like life that was like in another bubble that I completely kind of just like moved on from, not by choice but just by like circumstance. And so I was very used to just like that metamorphosis, like, oh, y'all think y'all saw something? Oh, I got something else for you. Like, you know, so
Hmm.
I was constantly used to reinventing myself in that way. So when I aligned myself, yeah, again, it was still kind of like another full circle moment. So then I'm at that crossroads of my identity, and I was like, okay, so now we can move this like all that I've built and attach it to like the creativity, right? So I stepped away from the stage and the microphone for like I don't know, maybe like 3, 4 years or some change. And my motto at the time was like, when people would ask me like, where's the new music? Or like, what happened to this? Or I can't find this. And I'm like, I'm gonna live a little so I can rap a little.
Right.
I'm big on rap being based off of real true life events. Like I don't have too much luxury to fantasize about, the unimaginable. Like I have to deal with I have to face what's in front of me like right now. So I think that's just the type of person I am. I don't know if that's like, a general consensus amongst my community, but that's how I approach things. So it was really important to me for me to live, journal, document, heartbreak, just everything. Like sometimes I feel like even like with like heartbreak, I'm like, damn, like did I break up with this nigga just so I could have a new chapter to my music? Like I was like, 'cause I know I want to break up song. I know I want to break up song on this album. So I'm like, damn.
Yeah. But that's
Um,
real, you know?
and
Like,
that is like artists. We are constantly doing research. Like my friends and I have like this.
research.
Yeah, like we have this ongoing joke where it's just like we'll see something that's like mad wild and we'll be like for research purposes only. Like and then we have the luxury to be able to translate it into music. But so I just felt like I concluded my research. Like I was like, okay, so what is it like to experience this journey, this transition in art, in music and conversation and language, right? Because even if you think about language, like I had to restructure like a lot of things in my music, like as far as language goes, right? Like how I address myself, how I relate to my anatomy.
Yep.
Like all of those things had to shift in my music. So it wasn't until basically like I had lived through my experience and like did that research that I was ready to kind of step back into music and then eventually step back into performance. Because at first I was just like, I just want to record again.
Yeah.
Like I want to hear myself on wax again. It had been a very long time since that happened. So that's when it happened. Like when I felt like I had done enough research.
Right. And you mentioned to me in passing at the listening party for the breakdown that you had a lot of this had come together initially when you were in Minneapolis for a time, and and like the executive producer of the project, Boo Boo, is also from Minneapolis. So like, when did you and Boo really start? Like, when did you know that this was gonna turn into like the album and not just like a bunch of songs that y'all were just making just for kicks?
Um, So I was introduced to Boo Boo through Blue Bone, and he's an artist based out in Minneapolis as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I went with the intention to have like a collective of songs, right? Like we had, I think when I first went into it, it was like I'm gonna put out something small for now, cause like I want to find a balance between like, real life and what I call real life at the time, which was just like, working and like getting my bread in a very like structured way
Mm-hmm.
and not freelancing as much. I was like, we're gonna do something small so that I can have like a balance, right? Like I don't want to like do too much. And then the world ended.
Right.
So I was just like, hold the fuck up. Like there's no choice but to keep pushing my pen right now or just like keep creating right now. And so when I went to Minneapolis, I went with my best friend Lish, and we just went with the intention to not only make music, but make music around people that had parallel stories to us
Right.
and people that understood the language that we were talking about. We went there to access that portal of freedom. Because yeah, I could book the top engineer in New York and the top producer in New York. Once what matters is how he engages with my content and my
Right.
language that creates the magic in the room. You know what I mean? So because I can't access that ever so organically, and women like me can't do that, or just artists that are, that are queer identifying don't really have that luxury. You have to go find it. So
Right.
I went to Minneapolis, and that's where it was at. That's where the portal was at. And shout out to Boo Boo. She created just sounds that allow me to float and just really like talk my shit and like the shit that I was suppressing for like a really long period of time, and just really like talk about my research, you know?
Yeah.
And her being another like Black trans woman for me was just like, that was the magic I was talking about. Like
Yeah.
being able to have the luxury to be in, which a lot of people take for granted, being able to be in a room and have the luxury of creating amongst people like you, whether
Yeah.
that's in a corporate space, whether that's in a creative space, it just doesn't happen very often for folks like me. You know, I often compare it to, you know, being a person of color and walking into a room of predominantly like white people. Like, no matter how
Yeah.
comforting and welcoming like their intentions may be, like the way your experiences impact your perception in that moment could change the whole dynamic, you know? And it might not be anyone's fault. Like, no one might not be, you know, creating that narrative, but it's just your experience
Yeah.
leads you to believe that you're uncomfortable, right? And I think there's a lot of work to do for you to like all of a sudden let your hair down in those environments, right?
Yeah.
Because
Even with people that you understand, because you got to build that trust.
yeah, you have to build that trust.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. It was about trust. So with Boo Boo, like I trusted that no matter what I said, what I was talking about, like she knew for a fact what that was. Like I didn't have to explain nothing. She got all the colloquialisms. Like she got the lingo. She was able to tap in, and I'm invested in reproducing that effect for like other artists and other queer artists particularly.
That's beautiful. And yeah, like I really wanted to draw attention to the fact that, you know, like every single person who worked on this project, whether they were a producer or, you know, a feature, like even like down to the engineers, if I remember correctly, just like everyone is queer in some way. And like that's really incredible. You know,
Yeah,
like that type of like that's like I'm sorry to cut you off. Like that just like that level of intention is so important and crucial. And just like you're really just speaking truth to power, and you not only want to be seen, but you want others to be seen through you being seen, you know. And like you know, it's like shout out to the whole team, a bunch of whom are in the house tonight. Like it's just like you know, like when I learned that, I can't remember whether you told me or I read it somewhere, but just like that really made me smile. It was like it really made it resonate and made the whole project that much more special to me. So
yeah, I
yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
That was the intention. Again, we can't always control how our intentions impact people, but I wanted to also like point out that the 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 idea of everyone kind of like, you know, being queer in some way is more so about like in the way we think versus like, you know, like
Yeah.
our sexuality
Of
or
course.
whatever, or our
Yeah,
gender
yeah, yeah.
identity. It was just more so like about people being able to make room for others in their thought process and like creative process, and make room for things that they question or that they're uncertain about or that they don't fully understand, and learning through the interaction, right? Like, because there were people on this album who worked on this album who, you know, might have known me from a hole in the wall or not, but also their proximity to my experience wasn't like they didn't have much of that, you know.
Right.
So for me to like show up in the room and be like, this is what, you know, like this is what this means, and not have to say it precisely, have them like listen to it in the music and come up with their conclusion is beautiful.
Man, yeah, like you really can't ask you really can't ask for a more you can't ask to be more seen than that. Like there's like, you know, like outside of like literally embodying somebody on some like body snatchers or like being John Malkovich shit, like or like some Get Out shit, like that's it. Like there's nothing more seen than that.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely right. No, I've been facing like struggling with this insecurity of like being able to recreate that feeling. I'm like, damn, like, is this really my miseducation? Like, am I ever going to have the luxury to just create at this frequency again with this honesty, right? I think now that I put out this body of work, like I'm engaging with like a lot of different like, you know, just like artists and producers and creatives from like different realms that are attracted to like the work, but I still don't know if they like are really tapping into like the conversation around it.
Right.
And the conversation basically says like I'd rather create around like like an experience that we have in common versus like a sound that you think is hot and that I think is hot. Like people, since the album dropped, like mad people are like, oh my god, like come to the studio, or like we should do this or we should do that, and I'm just like, I'm not in a space where I'm just like, oh, like that's hot, yeah, like that's what's gonna push my pen.
Yeah, right.
Nah, like this album was survival. Like this album was, I literally put my body on the line to produce this body of work, you know? So it's not as casual as just like, let's just hop on something.
Yeah, and yeah, like this is like a, like this is like this album is so raw, like, and like not even just like you like we were saying it off camera, like you really put so much, like, like not like you put so much of yourself into it, in like the representation, like, oh, like just like it's just like you really hold nothing back. And like that's the type of artist I feel like you've always been. Like it doesn't surprise me at all that you don't just like it's not like you're gonna hear like a Benny X beat outside and be like, yeah, I'm gonna write to that right now, like, like I mean, like
I
shout
like
out to
Benny
Benny
X.
X, but like it's just like like there needs to be a little bit more like feeling and more just like understanding and trust behind it than that, and like I see that in so many of these songs, but there's only, like there's like a handful in particular that I really wanted to hone in on, and I think the first one is the first track, Breakdown, cuz like, like I can't think of a, I mean like drill music is drill music. It's kind of like what New York is right now. Like it's kind of, I like I've been thinking about that often, just about like how like for a generation of kids, like the New York sound is drill. Like
That's crazy.
for us it's like the New York sound isn't necessarily, I mean it is now, but like we didn't grow up with drill music
Yeah,
in that way.
I think even hip hop back then, I'm sure, I don't know, maybe like to the people that were listening to in real time, like we could tell the difference between like the New York sound or like the New York wave of hip hop versus what was going on in other regions. But to me, there was still like this like, it just sounded like music, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so I often think about that too, like what kids are gonna look back to and be like, that was the sound of the city. Like that's crazy work.
Yeah, which is wild, cause cause I mean like we're like in like New York and Jersey is like third generation, because like we got it from the UK and the UK got it from Chicago. So like we're already getting like it's already mutated to the point where it's not exactly what it was before. And like there's definitely like no drill music out that sounds like this, and like it talks about these things. So I mean like talk to me about like bringing that song together and just like deciding to open the album in such like a bold, and I hate to use this word in this way, but like a provocative way, like I feel
Yeah.
like such a tool for even saying
No,
that,
that's
but,
cool.
like,
I mean, yeah, I love that word. I often reminds me of like when Janet had the pervert jersey on.
oh
Like,
yeah.
um, that I think that record was a lot of my music is really a response to something that already existed but didn't include me. So
Right.
um like we explore like the boom bap like 90s themes on the album as well,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yep.
And it's about reimagining something if I was a part of the conversation, or if there were like women like me as a part of that, right? So
Creating your own world, like for real. Yeah.
but still allowing people to create the parallels between like, well, what's going on, right? Like, or what they're used to, or like what they listen to or have listened to not not alienating people too much from what like my world is, to have them understand that it's actually not that different. Like we're we're operating on the same frequency. Like the
Yeah.
only thing that's setting us apart is what, I don't know. That's a whole other conversation. But
Yeah.
I don't want to get too political, but still, I think that
Get political as you want. It's all good. But anyway.
the point is that we all are more similar. Like I think a lot of conversations in media or like narratives always focus on like what's the difference, right? Or like and that's just polarizing. Like
Right.
there's never a conversation around how like my body is similar to like the next woman's body. So it's just like, well, you could do this and you can't do that, so we're different. And
Right.
in the song, in the album in general, like this one bar stands out to me, and it really engulfs how I feel about some of those attacks. And often women use kind of just like reproductive, like, experiences, like being able to reproduce and like bring life to the world as like this weapon. And I'm just like, how are you going to use your gift as a weapon, right? Like to allow me to understand that we're so different and I'm incapable of like what you can do. So ableist, but still.
Right.
There's a bar on the album that says, even if I could, I'd never birth his children, right?
It's one of my favorites too, yeah.
It's like, I think not to deviate too much on what like breakdown the song is about, it's just like, that's a response to commentary in general. Like, what if I don't want to have that nigga's kids? Like, what makes you think that you so special just because you can have Day-Day's kids? Like, fuck him. And, you know what I mean? Anyways, but...
and the sperm he wrote in on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like, trust me, if I had that luxury and that gift that I recognize, it would not be with him. Like, that's not who I would share it with. I'd probably hold on to it for dear life at this point. Like, but anyways... I think that breakdown, again, in that song too, there's just like a lot of responses to those conversations that people have about me and about bodies like mine and about women of my experience, right? Whether it be coming from the men that are attracted to me and the women in his life, or whether it's the women that are in like around me and the men that are in their lives. Like, that's always, the conversation's always about me. It's not with me when it comes to like topics about my experience. So Breakdown, the song, the album in general is about breaking it down from my point of view, telling my side of the story. So that record was produced by Boo. And it was the very first actual like song that we made off of the album. So it's beautiful that it's like the first song on there too. Right. And I wrote it in collaboration with Blue Bone, and yeah, we was just that was the record that I had to get off my chest. And then the rest of the songs I was able to just like, navigate my experiences and like look back on my journal and my diary. But that first song was just like, whether this is on an album or not, like, let me give my contribution to drill and add this story to it. As someone from Brooklyn, like, regardless of how I feel about the future of drill or like it being like such a staple, like, it's my duty, I felt like, to contribute to that. So like you said, when the kids are looking back, like, and it's a kid like me looking back that's in the hood, and just because they're queer doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be alternative, or like, no, like, they might just be queer and still on the block. Like, that shit exists. Like, that's real. So that was my response to that. And then my very first kind of like snap back into music was when I remixed Lit Bitch by Fabio Foreman. So I called it Femme Queen, and that was like my first time really like engaging with drill. And I know it put my community on tilt, and it definitely spread out beyond that. Like, there was a lot of verbiage in that song that was like new to people hearing on wax, like even my community, right? Like, they hadn't really seen like another Black trans woman use something that was like so. I mean, like, this song was busting through speakers, like, no matter where you went. Like, you could be in your house and you hear a car driving by and it's Lit Bitch, you know? So I think it was the first time that I heard somebody like me on a record like that. Like, even when I removed myself from the art, like, I'm just like, from a voyeur, like, from watching it, I'm just like, that was my first time. So I know it was the first time for many other people like me. And that record, I needed to create something original that piggybacked off of that. And then that's when, like, Breakdown, the song happened. Yeah. And that was kind of like my peace offering for drill. Like, I was just like, I'm not touching drill again. Like, I don't want to, like, clump myself into, like, a sound that's trending. And there are also, like, a lot of people who honestly feel like that is their gospel. So, like, y'all can have that.
Yeah, no. And, like, I think you did, I think you did a good job of, like, the song's not corny. It doesn't sound like you're like forcing it. Like, it sounds natural. Like, it sounds like you've been doing it, for a long time. And then, like, to follow that up with a song like Clipped, which to me also kind of has like drill-ish elements to it, kind of, sort of. But like, we were talking. I think we were talking off camera about the fact that you wanted to. You were really adamant about like not having too many like super specific pop culture references. One of my favorites on the whole album is where you sneak in the like I've been around the world and I still ain't found my baby, because I was just like because like I love that song, and it took me like 3 times listening
Still
to the song
looking.
to be like, oh shit, like that's what that is. But like you but like but like you were saying before, like that's like a breakup song, So like talk to me about making clipped and like and you're like we're talking about lingo, like that's such like a New York, Jersey, like you like you tell a certain person like it's clipped, like they know what that means.
Yeah.
So like talk to me about clipped a bit.
Um, I love that part too. Shout out to Lisa. I think that song is like, it's one of those songs that she clearly has proven to us that stands like, the test of time, and she's still performing it to this day. And I aspire to be able to do that. Like, I aspire to be able to perform something, years from now that I created like a really long time ago. We don't really, I mean, we do see that like in rap culture, but I was having this conversation on my drive here where it's like so many of our favorite like old school artists are afraid to perform like their album cuts because they don't think anybody is going to know them or going to be able to sing along. And I'm just like, don't cheat yourself out of that experience because you'll be surprised. But
People be digging.
yeah, people be digging.
For real.
Clipped is my side of a story from a relationship that I was experiencing while I was making the album or like coming out of. And I've really felt like it was my first time really putting like gaslighting into context, right? Like you remember like when the song hit, when gaslighting hit the waves of like people's vocabulary again, right? I wasn't privy to really like, I didn't have any firsthand experiences that I was able to recognize as being gaslit. Like before, it was just like, I always felt like I needed to prove my point, and when I'm being gaslit, or I just didn't have any context to add to it, or like a word to add to the experience. And for the first time, I was able to see it play out in real life, right? Like that whole relationship was a gaslighting experience. Like anytime that I felt like something was wrong, I was convinced that I was wrong for feeling like something was wrong. But in all reality, like something was still wrong, right? And it was collectively wrong. I never was saying like you're wrong or I'm wrong. It was like as a collective, I think you and I are wrong about something. It's like for me, I mean, it's not as linear as like I don't know, like a math equation, right? But it's just like if you're working with someone on something and you get the wrong answer, like it's you and that person's job to research why the answer that you thought was going to happen, the right answer didn't come out, or like the answer you thought was going to happen. So we failed to do that in that relationship. Like that person wasn't willing to do that research when something was going wrong. So I had to clip the situation, nip it in the bud. Like I was like, this is not conducive to just like my growth, right? Like at that time, I'm already envisioning the fact that I'm about to put out this album. I'm about to go on tour again. I'm about to remove that sense of comfort and revoke that access from people who only saw me through this lens and this like hiatus. Because like I went through this era where, people just thought I was like this just damsel, just like, this doll that just came out of a box, and I was just so innocent, or I was so inexperienced. And it was fun to cosplay as that for a while. Like when I would go into like a workspace, or like when I would meet someone new, I'm just like, yeah, like, this is what I like to do. Yeah, like these are my hobbies. But in reality, I'm like this like, cutthroat bitch calling people out on music and like globetrotting and all that stuff. Like I didn't feel like that needed to be my narrative in that moment. It was more so about like do your research and understand what like what my story is. And a lot of times I was still meeting people and dating people who just couldn't imagine me being anything else than what they saw in front of them. So I already was like imagining all these things playing in my head. So I was like, actually, this would not work when that is going to be happening. Like I can't imagine being with that person right now. they'd probably be sitting right next to you, trying to be like, trying to oversee a situation or like,
Yeah.
be possessive or whatever the case is. So, I mean, yeah. So that song was in response to that, and it was my side of the story. I didn't feel like I got to tell my side of the story in that relationship because they weren't willing to receive that, and the people around us um, perceived him as like this almost like savior because he met me at such a unique time in my life when like so many things were changing. But so I had to clap back, and that's how Eclipse came out.
Heard that. It's basically a diss track, damn near,
Yeah.
and like it's
And
you know
I hope that I have the opportunity to like someday really delve into that like song bar for bar because I'm telling you everything I have receipts for on that song, like everything.
we'll make that happen one day.
Yes.
We'll make that happen one day. And just in the interest of time, I wanted to touch on one more before I ask you a couple more questions. And to me, you're like gonna go to the end song, or not the end song, the second to last song, "Build Me Up," produced by El Hoven, who's right over there.
Yes, yes,
So yeah, clap, no, clap it up for Hoven. Come on.
yes.
So yeah, no, I mean like this is like it's like pretty heart wrenching, like
Ooh, that's beautiful, heart wrenching. I love that. Thank you.
Thank you. It's not the ending track, but it feels like it could be an ending track. Like that's like an end credit song to me on some movie shit. But like, talk to me real quick about putting "Build Me Up" together and like what that kind of did. I asked that
it
question
does.
fucked up. Sorry.
No, you're good. I get it. I think that there were very much like these scoring elements to the song, right? Like where it easily can translate into film and other forms of media. But I think, well, I know that this record was about a cycle, right? A cycle that I think we all experience of being at our highest and being at our lows, and understanding that is never going to end is like a big realization to come to. Like no matter how successful you are or how closer to your goals you are or how you reach them, it's like you are still vulnerable to being at your lowest,
Yeah.
So it's about that like hamster wheel effect of just like going in a circle, being at the top, coming back down. It's a reoccurring theme in many ways as well because like just the experience of the breakdown, like I went through all those highs and lows, like while I was making it, before I was making it, now, I'm experiencing highs and lows. So, Hovind has sent me the beat a long time ago, and I think I had like some sort of like sketch to it, but I think that like heart-wrenching like context that you mentioned wasn't really there yet, and it wasn't until I linked up with Cassius Cruz and Blue Bone, who wrote on the record, that I got to experience that, and we created this sandwich of verses where like everybody got a shot, so it was very much like it was very cipher about the situation. Like we were literally sitting in a room, sitting in a circle, and just like dishing out. No, we were all kind of just like writing in this room, but in our heads. So it was like, you do your verse, I'm gonna do my verse, and then like we'll join forces.
Yeah.
And I just happened to be the messenger for all of these verses. So Cassius wrote the first verse, and I just went in there and I did the first verse. Then I put in the second verse, and then we put in Blue Bone's verse, which was the third. But the most important thing was that we wrote it at the same time. So it wasn't like I heard Blue Bone's verse and I was like, oh, let me tighten up mine, or like Cassius heard mine and was like, let me change this. Or, no, it was just like, that's the one song that was like all or nothing. Like we were just like, send it in as it is. You could hear every breath. You could hear my just every pee popping and my lisp and just like the spit coming out my mouth. Like you could hear it on that song. And I'm just really proud about that one. And then Miss Carrie Sachs, I sent her the record and I was just like, sister, I don't know if you're like in a time right now where you're doing features or like, we had never collaborated, and as independent artists, like, you know, we have to kind of really like gauge how much we give into art before like depleting ourselves of like our real energy, like our energy or whatever. So when I sent it to her, I was like, this is what we wrote. I want you to read it before you listen to it. So she read through the song, she read through the lyrics or whatever, and she's like, sis, like, I want to hear this. Like, what does this sound like? So then sent it to her. At the time, Blue Bone was on the reference for the hook. And nothing, she sent it back to me, and it was all over the place, right? Like, the files were just like, we had to really kind of like bring it together, but everything that she sent us we used because that's what we wanted, that rawness. Like we wanted it to translate us being all over the place, because that shit is real, like, and it's nothing to be ashamed about. Right. Being all over the place, like, I'm a very all over the place girl and I'm doing great, like, you know, so it's okay to be that. But Miss Carrie Sachs really brought it home for me. It was my second time having the luxury of being featured on a song with another Black trans woman. First time was with my best friend, Lish, and we made Femme Queen, and that was like our anthem. And then that was the second time with Miss Carrie Sachs, and it was really monumental for me. And I think it showed that if we dig deep enough, we could find each other and create like really great quality work that is that transcends our like identities as like trans people, right? Like it's not so, there's no in that song, there's no sensationalism around like me being a Black trans woman, like featuring another Black trans woman on the song. Like it's just like we're singing and we're rapping, and that's what we came to do.
It just is.
It just is,
and,
right?
And you're like, that's like, I feel like that's like the big takeaway from this project is like, you know, like this is me as I am. Like I just am. You know, and to bring this full circle before we open it up to potentially a little bit of Q&A, very last question. I mean, like, you know, like in the spirit of all of that, Rose, Miss Boogie, if your life was a movie, what would it be about?
I mean, my life is a movie. And
see, you're the first person to say that since I asked that question.
Yes.
So thank you.
And it's about, like I say often, it's about finding similarities with the people around me and allowing people to understand that I'm not as different from them as they think I am. Like, of course, we all have different tastes, we all have different preferences, we all find joy in different things, but if there's one thing we have in common, it's the fact that we're both in the same place at the same time, doing different things to get by or doing different things to survive, but we have a goal, and it's just to live as we are, you know? So I don't know. I don't know what kind of movie it would be. Like, it would definitely be somewhere in the, like, documentarian, like, atmosphere, like documentary vibes, but I don't want to be in it. Like, I want to have the luxury of watching it in real time, because I still don't have that. Like, I mean, again, if I dig through the crates, I can hear about it, and if I dig through the archives, I can watch movies about it. But yeah, my movie would just be about like simply existing. It'll probably be called Exist.
Yeah. There's never been a movie called Exist that I could think of, so I'm in.
Exactly.
You know, I'm in.
BRIC, can we have some space to rehearse? Like, you know, equipment. Let me know if y'all want to contribute to the cause, but yeah.
Already. That's all I got for you, Rose. I don't know if anybody in the crowd has any questions they'd like to ask real quick before I make a pretty special announcement that I'm excited to take. But like, does anybody have any questions for us, or is there a mic that we can pass around? Thank you so much.
It's my first time really like looking at the crowd.
Yeah, nah. Y'all look beautiful, man.
People, y'all look beautiful.
I guess it's a bit of a two-part question.
Yeah.
Walk on.
With the theme of movies and such, you were just mentioning transitioning and then that kind of actualizing some of the art for you and everything like that, and that kind of like spoke a lot. And there was something I was reading about the other day. It was this Cronenberg film called Crimes of the Future.
Crazy movie.
Crimes of the Future.
Crimes of the Future. And it was in 2023, and then I saw a flyer for a 1970 David Cronenberg movie called Crimes of the Future. And it just had me going back to completely different movies. And it just, this idea was playing around with what you were talking about, with just like, would you ever like revisit some stuff that you had done in the past, like just concepts, things like that?
Absolutely. I dream about that often. Like, building the bridge between where my work is now and where it once was, and those conversations. Oh my God, hey boo. um, yeah, I often dream about that, like creating, creating that bridge between like my retrospective work and where it is today. But I can't do that alone, right? Like I need to do that with people who witnessed it or who have formed their own like narratives or opinions about like what my work meant to them before. So, all the directors and things of that nature get at me.
Hi. So I have a question in regards to the mixing and the master side of it and sequencing. How long did that take?
Is that Sadie?
Yes, it is.
Hi, boo. Ooh.
So how long did that take, and where was your mind at sonically for the sequence of it?
How long did that take? I didn't. Damn, how long did that take? I don't know. I feel like, um, yeah, it was like over the course of a year, right? It was like, I would call it like a year in development, a year in recording, and like a year in mixing, mastering, and tweaking. But I think each year felt like a lifetime, but felt like so different from the last year. By the time we finally put this out, we had to really reflect on like the timeline and be like, how long did this really take? Because it just really felt like just time in general. Like we were just experiencing the album, because we had to also go through that moment where we could like listen to the album for our own pleasure before we put it out. So we went through like a long period of like listening to it in privacy and like on the Dropbox files, and you know what I mean?
Y'all do a
And-
car test or not?
Oh yes, I'm always driving, so it was always a car test. But then I had to reflect on what it sounded like outside of listening to car speakers.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
take off the noise cancellation. Like who else is listening to it
That's
this
real.
way? And another
That's
thing
real.
was that we not only did we have to take that time to like listen to it and enjoy the work ourselves, I had to also fight that urge of like making those last minute changes. You know what I'm talking about? Like up until the day before it's dropping, like I want to change something, but my accountability buddies kept me in check and didn't let me. But even if it was now, I would pull the album out and like re-release it with like another tweak or two. So,
Yeah, I have a question for Rose.
hey, Pops.
You mentioned your exposure to music through your family, like hearing music around the house and things like that. And everybody pretty much does that, but not many people will go the next step and let it really become a part of their life and go out and bring it out to the world. You understand what I'm saying? When did you feel that, or was it something that was just always there?
I think it was based off of, I think it was always there, but it was activated by the types of music that my mother was like playing around me. She played a lot of like old school Latin like divas that sang about like pain and struggle and not being seen fully. Some of those artists are La India, La Lupe. Like these are women who spoke about their struggles and weren't always talking about like how glamorous it is to live as they are and how attracted people are to them. It was like women talking about some real rugged things and really fighting through that. And the same thing goes with like English music as well. Like I was always listening to women who spoke about pain and struggle, and that is what activated the thought in me to speak on my own struggles and pain. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. My name is Brian. Nice to meet you, Ms. Boogie.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
So my question is, I myself, I'm an artist, and I'm going through a transitional phase myself. How did you recognize it was time for like a change within your career? And how did you carve out the space for yourself to create a new version of yourself that felt more authentic? And how did you know you arrived when you released this album?
I'm still figuring it out. And that's what I was hoping this album would do for us, is like break down that process and simplify it to its like, simplest form. So I hope the answer to that question is in the work. I don't have it right now because I'm still living through like a lot of the things that I spoke about on that album. And they're even though like again we wrote it X amount of time ago, it's very much still my reality today. So I don't know what that new space looks like. I'm in it, but I hope it's in the work. And if you take another listen, I hope you could listen to it with that lens and hear any of those answers in it. That was a good question. Made me think a lot, but get at me, hit me up, and we could talk about it.
Aw.
Hi, I'm Liv.
Hi, Liv.
Peace.
I think through a lot of things through like storytelling. Oh, sorry. So one thing I wanted to ask is how do you think that your childhood exposure to music, not just sonically, but like the words and messages, how do you think that contributed to you being such a wonderful storyteller?
How do I what into storytelling?
Your like background in music, your experiences, but also just that beginning of like your childhood exposure to music contribute to you becoming a wonderful storyteller.
Very much. I think I don't make too much. Like in my catalog, I listen to like a lot of the things, even the demos, and not too much of it sounds like current, so to speak. A lot of my references are very like time capsuled for like a specific like period in time in music, and then the way that like I was consuming it, right? So they're like very like millennium coded, like 90s coded. A lot of the times through my music, I fantasize about like a time that I didn't exist in, or that like I wasn't a part of. I wasn't in the streets for. So very much a lot of it makes its way into like my music and my writing. Even like with some of my collaborators who aren't like, I don't know, like in the same we're all like in the same generation, but just like there's just like a small glimpse of time that I might have captured like before them just because of like our age differences. I find a lot of joy in like putting them onto those things or like bringing it back full circle. Or maybe we were too young when we were listening to it in the first place, and bringing it into perspective now shows us a lot about like what has changed, what hasn't changed, what still applies, and how like things have evolved. So a lot of my influences from like my youth still make their way into my music. I feel like I'm not done yet. Like I still have to reference a lot of things that were special to me, but I couldn't find myself in when throughout the time that I was living through those times. If that makes sense.
Kudos, Miss Boogie.
Hi.
My question has similar to some of the questions that have been asked already, but I've been thinking a lot about the word catalyst as to if there's anything you can remember as to when it was that you kind of really knew, whether it was an instinct within yourself, that this is the direction or the part of the journey you needed to start. Is there anything in particular, whether painful or, because catalyst doesn't always have to be painful. It could be just, as you said, from your childhood. But is there anything that stands out as catalyst of you figuring out at the basic of the beginning of who you have become?
Yeah, I think it all started from like a lack of that like ability to see myself. And then when I started to really acknowledge how the world seen people like me or seen people that feel the way I feel, whether that was already a part of like my physical makeup or not, I felt like even more of an urge to really like lock that in, right? Because it's like, I'll be damned if I'm leaving this earth with a secret. I'll be
Say that
damned if
again.
I'm leaving this earth without like, just being able to do me, like simply. So I don't think there were like specific moments, but I think that what I just mentioned is like the story that allowed me to, or the stories that allowed me to like make sure that I'm documenting my own story, whether it's in my own privacy or public facing. So I was just it's dark and morbid, but I always just knew who I wanted to see, when my life was over, as I shadowed over like my physical self. If that makes any sense. So I was like, I need to tap into something before I leave this earth, and you know, here she goes. Ooh, huh? Where does that strength come from? Probably a little bit of fear. Yeah, it's combative, you know, it's comes it's challenge, right? Like just being afraid of being like weak, like or being afraid of not being able to like speak for myself. So
Hi, Miss Boogie. So in the breakdown, you have a lot of beautiful instrumentals, and I would love to get some more insight on how do you go through spitting something so raw like Hustler, but then having that instrumental break, or like what was the intention, or what do you see and feel during these instrumental breaks throughout the breakdown?
it's very like it's it's painting of a landscape, it's like teleporting. Um it's experimental in a way where not necessarily like the sound per se is experimental, right? Because I think everything is experimental until like you do it or make it. But it just like really allows me to like teleport, right, and decompress after so much like dense lyrical content like on this album. Like, you know, I talk a lot of shit. I talk it quickly. I talk it jam packed into each other. So all of those instrumental breaks contribute to like that tension and release that I wanted to experience on this album, which is again like the epitome of like building something up, then breaking it down. It's like the cycle of tension, release, and tension again, and release again, and it's just never ending. So that's what I feel when I hear that part, those parts of the album.
I think this has to be our last question if anybody else has one. Gotcha.
Hi,
Hi.
Miss Boogie.
Hi.
You've been such a wonderful storyteller and world builder, and I just wanted to say I love the visuals that you chose to tell your story. Hearing you speak about this transformation, speaking about film, photography, you're very visual with everything that you say. And at first I had a question about how do these visuals tie in, but the more that I sat here, everything just makes sense about these layers and peeling them off and recognizing them and like using them together to form this bigger story. And I think you are so trusting of your voice and of your image, and I really hope to continue to see that. So it's not really a question anymore because I have the answer, but it's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, all unanswered questions are in the work. Make sure you go cop the album. Not only stream it, but cop it.
Yeah.
The breakdown in stores now.
Get it everywhere.
And hit me up if you have any like more questions. Like that's what I find the most joy in, and I want to say thank you for it. It's like giving me the opportunity to talk about the work, and like you said, ways that allow me to peel back the layers. And I think that that's never gonna end. I love performing. I love a good old karaoke session, you know, to my own music, but you know, like I'm more in I'm in a space where I want to allow people to understand what frequency I was on when I made this work, so that I too could have the luxury of listening to work like this without having to carry the weight on my shoulders of, you know, being the fab girl. Like,
It's my pleasure to have you. It's our pleasure to have you. Like, clap it up for Rose, please.
Wow.
Man, thank y'all so much for coming. Thank everyone for being here. I have a
Thank
very
you.
quick announcement that I'd like to make before everything goes. I've been working on a book for about the last maybe 2 years, and it's finally done and it's called Real Notes, Culture Writing on the Margins of Music and Movies. This is my first time
Culture.
talking about it publicly. So like it's out in a month. It'll be out on March 8th. Through my man Austin Williams. I'm not sure if he's in the house, but his independent imprint, 4 p.m. Publishing. My lovely Big Flowers. Michael Seward is up in the stands. He did the cover art for it and the logo for the podcast. So that'll be out. This is my first time announcing it to anybody outside of like close family and friends. This felt like the perfect time to do it. Thank y'all for believing in us. Thank you for trusting me with this opportunity. BRIC and Chris and Morgan and everybody, Michael, just like all the people I've been working with this last, like, we've been doing this for like 3 months. Thank y'all, man. That's all I got. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
That was fun.